Over to you, Lizzie.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Um, I'm honored to be here today speaking with you all. Many thanks to UAP for organizing this webinar. Today, I will be speaking of how floor covering can be adapted to the new workspace of today. As Junie explained, my name is Lizzie Kang. I've been in the Asia Pacific for the past 10 years. I see some familiar faces that I've encountered over the years through my visits in the Philippines. And I'm happy to be doing this with you all virtually under the current pandemic. Um, so this is kind of the agenda of what we're going to go through. First, I'm going to give a little bit of background as to where we are now and what is the post-COVID cultural change that's going to happen with a new safety guidelines that needs to be implemented within the new workspace. And using signage as a design element for the floor to finally really define new boundaries for the new workspace as we head into the future. Um, I'm going to go into a little bit about our current situation. Um, as everyone is going through a hard time now, but this is not of something new. As we know, plagues and pandemics have ravaged humanity through its existence, and it often changed the course of history, and at times it signaled the end of entire civilizations. So but there is light to this, as the couple of slides that I'm going to go through is really helping us to understand how we have overcome viruses, plagues, and epidemics. The Black Death is said to be one of the deadliest pandemics recorded in human history. It wiped out over 200 million people. But what I really wanted to point out here was really the concept of quarantine came from originated back in 1347. It started in Italy. The word quarantine originated in Italian called quarantino, where they couldn't understand where the contagion was coming from, so they started to lock all the sailors coming in the ships for 40 days until they were clear that they were not sick. The Great Plague of London killed about 100,000 people just within 7 months. It was caused by a bacteria transmitted through a bite of an infected rat flea. But this really was the Great Plague ended through the implementation of sealing up the sick. So this idea of isolating yourself within a contained space. Smallpox was a worldwide epidemic, and it killed many millions of people. But this is really the first first pandemic where it was ended by a vaccine. It took nearly 2 more centuries for smallpox to be completely eradicated. But there is hope, as now we have vaccinations to prevent smallpoxes. Cholera has been around for many centuries. Um, but this is really where the idea of water sanitation and sewage water treatment came into place. So in most developed countries, it's pretty eradicated, while in third world countries still now lacking sewage treatment and access to clean drinking water, cholera is still persistent. The Spanish flu, I believe, is something that is of the most similar as to what we're going through now. It wiped out about 20 to 50 million people worldwide. And back in the 1920s, there was no vaccine to protect against this influenza and no antibiotics to treat infections. So control efforts worldwide were limited to really isolation, quarantine, good personal hygiene, use of disinfectants, and limitations of public gatherings. And this is where many governments around the world start to embrace new concepts of preventive medicine, socialized medicine, and also annual flu vaccinations and public healthcare systems. So right now we are going through current year 2020. We started this turn of the century with COVID-19 from the coronavirus. All of us are going through this now. Luckily, me sitting here in Shanghai, we feel we're still safe. We're going into the office every day. And so there is still hope. But I know all of you in the Philippines are still working from home and practicing social distancing. So where are we? Where are we now? We know that this pandemic has shifted the way we live, work, play, and socialize. It poses an uncertainty for everyone in the foreseeable future. And there's been a lot of speculation about the new workspace. There's been a plethora of articles talking about the office life after COVID. And there's a lot of opinions, like everything at the moment, though, some is a bit extreme. And to be honest, we all don't really know. But as leaders of design in the office space, we know that the old office will change, and open office systems where the office was being redesigned as your sanctuary will need to shift and change in ways that we need to drive. So the post-COVID cultural changes, companies have a responsibility to create a work environment that really minimizes the potential for virus transmission. We also have a responsibility to develop a new kind of culture and promote responsible behaviors such as social distancing and enhanced hygiene practices. One thing that is clear, and I think most of you now are still from the work from home model, looking ahead to the longer term implications, many employers are expecting at the very least significant changes in employee preferences and working practices with respect to working from home. Personal protection model, wearing a mask. I know in the US there's political issues with wearing masks, but there's been a lot of interesting ways just around here in China how they're really taking on personal protection, as you see on this image here. The social distancing model. This is on the left image where people are having a picnic, gathering around outside. This is pre-COVID-19. And the large image in the middle, this is actually in Singapore to help visualize social distancing guidelines. Residents in Singapore are using tape to demarcate many outdoor common areas and also shopping centers. So the large tape kind of demarcates where you're supposed to sit and the boundary between one person to the next. So our world is really being re-engineered for the new social distancing model. Nations around the world are practicing their own social distancing measures as the global coronavirus pandemic continues to disrupt our daily life. This is a proposal called the Gastro Safe Zone, a public space proposal respecting social distancing measures, Hua Architects has imagined a proposal that can reconcile people and public spaces post-COVID-19. This program aims to awaken stagnant gastronomic businesses by regulating outside eating and ensuring the required social distancing measures. The first prototype is, this is actually in the Czech Republic. This is a UK studio. It's a proposal as well. It's a concept for a tent classroom that would allow students to return to school while still maintaining social distancing guidelines. They envision the pop-up teaching space to be erected at schools to expand capacity for socially distanced learning and also to reduce the reliance on restricted circulation routes. So parks, public spaces are being redesigned for social distancing. This is a Dolores Park in San Francisco, where the Recreation and Parks Department placed social distancing circles measuring roughly 6 feet in diameter, which is about 2 meters, throughout the entire park. This is in Berlin. So bumps, bruises, and scratches aren't the only danger now for kids. How do you keep children safe on the playground during a global pandemic? Asking themselves this question, Berlin-based inventors Martin Binder created something called Rimbin, a concept for an infection-free playground. The space provides children with individual platforms, allowing them to see, to communicate, and also play games with each other safely. Parents, meanwhile, are able to keep an eye out from a distance. Retail and offices are being redesigned. The AIA, the American Institute of Architects, and many different interior and design firms are releasing 3D models of different types of spaces on how to help reopen safely during the pandemic. I thought this was an interesting sector as we go into the next agenda, which is new guidelines. As you see here, schools are being redesigned for social distancing, but you can see here the footpath that are being signified on the floor through the dots and with the arrows where people are supposed to walk in one direction and the next. And you can see the circular parameters are being placed within the classroom so that you keep the 2 meter distance. Is everybody following me? Am I going too fast or too slow?
Well, you're okay. Well, you're okay.
Okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
All right, perfect.
Okay. Okay.
If anyone has questions, you can raise your hand or put it in the chat box, and then at the end of the presentation, we're gonna have a Q&A session. So I hope you're all paying attention because I'm expecting a lot of questions. Okay, so I'll continue. So what are the new guidelines going to look like? And as employees will be required to play their part and act responsibly. This also means companies will need to move rapidly to provide clear guidelines. And these new rules must be fast and cost-effective to implement and highly visible and easy to follow. So the first is less touch points. So the less you touch, such as removing unnecessary high-risk touch points, like walls or doors or handles, so that you create a barrierless transition between rooms and function areas. And actually, the floor can act as a barrierless boundary instead of panels or partitions while still maintaining the functionalities of that specific area. Um, it's inevitable for anxiety, stress, and just worries about the future with COVID-19. And something as simple as color can really help to improve the employee's well-being and in terms of how you can uplift that person's mood. With Militron, our print technology, we have unparalleled color options as an advantage to enable this transition. What are the rapid changes to provide the safety guidelines? The first is really being able to provide informative signage, a quick solution to provide information on the floor to existing spaces, and actually designing it with competitive positivity, where this is not something that has to look bad. It can be designed so that it's attractive, so that the safety information embedded onto the floor creates a guideline as to what safety measures needs to be taken. And it's impossible really to overlook, and actually very simple to follow. So the Millikan solution to this was what we're calling social factor. It's a program designed to provide instructional graphic solutions for social zoning and shared spaces. It features a collection of icons printed directly on our carpet tiles. And this really helps you to get back to work in a safe, but also in a stylish, seamless way. I'm going to share a quick video so that you can see what that looks like.
Baby, you can get on my boat and make it rock, yeah. Baby, you can get on my boat and make it rock, yeah. Baby, you can get on my boat and make it rock, yeah.
All right, so let me explain how this actually works. This is a typical office space with one of our products, topography installed. You can easily create a designated zone by inserting color within the pattern. And then to enhance that or reinforce that, you can place social distancing icons by just replacing this existing tile. Another room scene where we're trying to create a sense of wayfinding by switching out the corridor tiles, or just simply inserting the social distancing icons. Same space with a different product, Playangle, which is more of a geometric pattern, and then you can insert a different color to create that zone or the demarcation of the corridor, and place the 2-meter distancing icons and also the arrow icons to show the circulation of which way you're supposed to walk. Another example of using our patina compositions. So this is really showing you how, for an existing office space, if you want to quickly fix and put safety guidelines on the floor, we are able to provide you with these informative tiles to quickly go and replace those tiles to where it's necessary to put those guidelines. So for the future, what does the new workspace look like? You know, I know you're all architects and designers and you're all thinking about this, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of different webinars and ideas as to how this is going to look, because it really needs rethinking, and this really creates a profound new design challenge. And actually, the floor can really play an important role in offering effective solutions. The floor is a perfect medium for informative communications that can direct traffic flow and also indicate the positioning of individuals and furniture pieces. These are some of the images that I've pulled off from, so this one here is the 6 feet office concept from CBRE. And you can see they're starting to have a two feet parameter along the desks. This is another example of where you're creating a barrier between each of the desks. And really there's a lot of research being done from numerous different furniture suppliers as to how the furniture size may shift. But really the 6 points I think are: one is be welcome at work, but always act responsibly. Second is stick to the rules and follow the signs. 3, stay safe at 6 feet, equaling 2 meters from each other. And walk the office clockwise, always and everywhere. And enter and leave the meeting rooms as indicated. And 6 is replace your desk pad daily and leave a clean desk. So with the floor, you can really abide with number 2, sticking to the rules, following the signs, and staying 6 feet away from each other. This can be indicated on the floor. And walking the office clockwise and entering, leaving the meeting room as indicated. These 4 points can really be emphasized with the floor, by using signage as a new design element. So this, I hope you all know this product topography. This was a product designed to utilize the carpet modules as almost as a drawing tool in being able to indicate the functionalities of the workspace. So this here marks the footpath. And there's a color going through that indicates the flow of the footpath. We are able to print whatever verbiage or signage you want on the floor, and this is supposed to be creating some form of a zone within the space. So you can see setting zones is a very popular concept now that's being done all over. And now with the distancing rules, we are able to embed the social factor icons very easily. Wayfinding is a very important concept we need to consider when designing any type of space. And now with these signage symbols, you can easily enhance that by directing the traffic flow with visual instructions. And then also with the furniture size changing, you know, I know there's been a shift from furniture sizes going from 1.8 back to 1.2, but now, you know, there's speculation that they will start to get bigger. So with these new rules, how do we define a new boundary where safety is a very important factor? And our new collection called the Boundaries Collection is perfectly timed, as it does not really apply to the trends of the past, but also in lieu of what's going on today, the standardized 1 meter transition modules make designing for today's demands for social distancing measures both seamless and beautiful. I think you've seen this product or it's just been launched over the past 2 months, but really we're talking about this concept of how do we define a physical boundary or an emotional boundary between a place to place, a person to person, and how do we beautifully kind of construct a floor to suggest what a boundary can be in terms of limitations and restrictions, but also the idea of being able to open them up. I'm going to share a quick video of the product so that you can see what that looks like. So this is the actual product installed within our new renovated Shanghai showroom. So you can see how the color can transition outside and spew out into the onto the corridor from the phone booth. We have a kaleidoscope pattern option, which I will explain in a little bit. But I'll walk you through how this product can really highlight an area in a subtle way without being so so cut and clear in that transition. There are 9 tile modules that make up the accent square transition in the middle, as you can see. Each of these tiles are 1 meters in size. So this entire module becomes a 3-meter square. And with that, the center accent in the middle is already creating a 2-meter square, which kind of perfectly fits with this social distancing measures of the 6 feet / 2-meter rule. The reverse can be achieved where the center is in the middle, as you're just switching around the modules, where the north you put down, the south you put up, and then the west and east you put side to side, and then just the corner tiles are replaced where the accent is creating that border instead. All 9 of these tiles don't have to be used together, as you can, these can be expanded. They're all individual SKUs. And also you have another option of a smaller scale of the plank size at 25 by 1, where you're starting to get a completely different effect with this, or you can use this as a coordinate, and you can see how this can be done to create some form of a wayfinding with the planks. So this is an overview, a scenario of how a typical office space may look. So it includes the basic functions like the entrance, the waiting area, the reception, the pantry, a meeting room, a working space, a public area, workstation, and also the corridor. You can see how the space is being designed on top from one to the next. And then the last bit, I'm not sure if you've noticed, includes social factor icons. And notice that there are no real glass doors or walls or anything within this entire floor plate. And the designation of the function is purely done through the boundaries product. So I'll walk you through how this works, for instance, in a workstation. So you saw the desks were closer together. That was pre-COVID. And post-COVID, you remove the desks from each other. And then we have created basically the yellow tile as a designation for where you're supposed to place your chair to create that 1 meter boundary from the other chair. These dots are supposed to indicate a wayfinding direction as a guide to the footpath. And you can see the dots going from small to large, indicating this is the way so you're supposed to walk. Here is another example of the reception area where you can see these tiles used here as a guideline as to where you're supposed to stand. So the orange square here is really indicating that you're in a one meter designated spot where you're supposed to stand once you enter the office and going to the reception. So the different colors represent the designation for the floor area. And then the orange tile is creating a suggestion for a 2 meter safe zone. And then the dots indicate the 3 dots equals 3 feet, which equals to 1 meter, which means from here to here, you're within a 2 meter safe zone distance. I'm going to go into this dot system in the later slides. I know it can be a little bit confusing. I just wanted to show you what that really looks like first. So this is a like a waiting area lounge. So you move the lounge chairs apart. You put the social distancing icon where you're opposite each other, showing the 2 meter distance. And then the blue square is a designation for the safe zone with the social factor distance indicator creating basically a trigger to show you that you're within a safe area. This is a meeting room. So you saw the meeting room table expanded in size, and the chairs are now spread apart. And again, you have the notifier on the floor of the blue square as an indicator to where you're supposed to place your chair. And then the distance indicator showing that you're within the 2 meter safe zone. So I think this is a very interesting product and how you can play around with this. So this idea of new rules for the new normal, the distance indicator and these customizable symbols can be a way to serve reminders as to social distancing and safety standards. So you can see here, from one chair to the next, this starburst is basically indicating that you're within a 2-meter radius. When there's only 3 dots, it means that you're 3 feet / 1 meter apart in the linear direction. Same thing here. This is a 2-meter direction in the linear direction, and this is the cross direction. And the starburst is creating a circular distance where you're indicating that you are in that safe zone. So this doesn't mean that you're printing a 2-meter circle, but it's basically creating a language that needs to be communicated to the office and the end user, of course, as a sign to understand the distancing rules. This is another another way, which you saw in the earlier slide. You're creating that 2-meter distance from the opposite chair. From here to here, you will be 1 meter, but from here to here, you're within the 2-meter. So this actually is the dots, the distance indicators, I feel is acting as a design element within the floor that can be embedded onto the floor plan to act as a measuring tool almost, but also is part of the design element of the floor. So this is another option, another way where I'm going to explain the wayfinding indicator. So you can see the dots here shifting from large to small, which basically is giving you intuitive direction marker. So the small to large progression is marking a direction to the path instead of having just a straight arrow on the floor. This is acting as a sign as to how you should walk within the office space. And another option is you can go from a light to dark progression, which marks the direction of intuitively you would want to walk towards the darker square. And I was actually going to ask all of you guys, is that intuitive enough, or does it need to be a little bit more obvious? And if it is that it needs to be obvious, we can just simply insert a small little arrow at the end of the dark marker here. And these are more straightforward informational carpet tile graphics. You know, just to stand like the social factor icons that you saw earlier in this session, we can simply add these icons as well onto the product with multiple different colors. Another way is I think, I'm not sure if any of you today on the call was involved in the Kaleidoscope webinar I held a couple of months back, where we're adding another level to the Boundaries product, where we're kind of looking at this idea of a kaleidoscope, where it's really representing an emblem of our world now, where it's complex, it's constantly changing, but it's still beautiful. And a boundary is not only limited to a linear solid boundary, but something as intricate and complex as a kaleidoscope. So we have 7 standard kaleidoscope pattern options. But these are really only here to show what is really possible. You can also design your own custom kaleidoscope pattern to be embedded as a part of the boundaries collection, where you're adding a little bit more complexity in terms of that transition, where it's not just a color transition, but a pattern transition. So you saw these images earlier through the video where you have the linear color transition, the kaleidoscope transition into the same neutral. And then you see here, you can embed the social factor icons as well. So the designing the new workspace, starting with the floor, you can see here, this is where we reversed the use of the neutral, where the neutral is acting as a designated spot for where to put your chair. And the light blue, the azul color, is really acting more as a field. And this is where I think color can play an important part in uplifting the mood of the employees. And then you have the traffic flow, the footpath through the wayfinding indicator here, and the social factor icon here as a distance indicator that you're 2 meters apart and that you're 2 meters apart from one chair to the next. And then the transition of color, demarcating the function of the area, meeting room table, more discussion area, and a bench. And this is, there's no walls, but is clearly identifying the function of the different areas within the space. So I'm gonna have everybody scan this QR code, whether I think this will all work on your phones. We have a new function on our website visualizer, which I'm gonna walk you through how to do this. And because then you can immediately start to play around with the boundaries product for your new office. So I'm gonna take a 30-minute break. I mean, 30-second break while you guys get this uploaded onto your phones or your tablets or your computer. Is that okay?
So while we're doing that,
So while we're doing that, oh,
wait, I'll mute. I'll mute. Okay. So while we're doing that, we ask everyone to, if you have questions, if you can prepare your questions and you can write it on the chat portion. So in your Teams, you will see a hand and there's like a dialogue chat icon. So you can place your questions on the chat group, and we will select a few of the questions that we will be discussing later on after the presentation. Thank you. Easier on mute. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All
Yes.
right. Can you see my presentation?
Yes. Yes. We can see it.
Okay. Sorry about that. So I hope all of you got the the scan to work, but basically it should take you to our visualizer. And the product that is installed is just a default product. If you're on your phones, it should show more of a portrait view like this. Just make sure that you change your region to Asia Pacific so that you're not on the UK, Australia, or the United States region. So make sure that you change the region. And then if you go to the change room on the top bar, it should give you a multitude of different functions within the workspace, such as social factor settings, meeting room setting, lobby, education, guest rooms for hotels, public space, workstations, corridor. A close-up view is the detail, and bird's eye view. I'm gonna go into just a workstation, and then once you select that, the way to change the product is to click on the thumbnail. So if there's two thumbnails in the room scene, it means that you can change both of these patterns. So you click on the thumbnail and it should take you to this window, and you simply select the boundaries product in the collection, and then in the design you can select which tiles you want where from the drop down menu. So I selected the vertical transition and the solid, so you're able to create that transition from the corridor into the open workstation. I think the most exciting part of this visualizer is now what we're calling the My Room function. So you can all click on this. If you click on My Room, you can basically use your camera or pull in any photograph you have that is your own and upload. And that should render you the carpet. It takes some time to process. And don't do any crazy room scenes with a lot of chairs, because what this is doing is a AR tool where the system is trying to recognize where the floor begins and ends, so that it can render whatever product that we have available on the website. So sometimes there's a little bit of a glitch when it doesn't recognize where the floor finishes. So that happens when there's a lot of things going on the floor. So try to find something that's a little bit cleaner. And then once that gets processed, this room scene here is an existing room scene on the visualizer. And this is the image that I selected, and it immediately rendered whatever image that I selected onto the room scene. And you can pull in different products as well. So I think this makes it really easy for you with projects where you want you want to see in your rendering what the product looks like, you simply have to go to the visualizer and upload your picture, and it will render whatever product that we have available onto your photograph.